Hello, my name is Daniel Stillwell. I'm the editor of the IFTA e-newsletter, and we have with us today Dr. Maurizio Andolfi from Rome, Italy. He is a prolific author and presenter and trainer. He's been in the field for several decades, and he is with us today to talk about some of his work and a little bit of his perspective on the history and maybe even the future of marriage and family therapy or systemic psychotherapy around the world. So thank you so much, Dr. Andolfi, for being with us.
It's just such a pleasure for me to be back with IFTA.
Wonderful, wonderful. So the first question I ask all my people who we interview is, what kind of clinician or mental health practitioner do you identify as? And what does that look like in your context?
Meaning which are the people that are mostly entitled to work with families?
What do you have a professional identity label or title like family therapist or child psychiatrist or those type of things?
Okay. Now, you talk about myself or in
Mhm.
general?
Yeah, I
Oh,
want to know about you. Yeah.
myself, I have two labels that are like family psychotherapist and social community psychiatry.
Social community psychiatry. Okay.
Because when I was young, I lived in US and I had a fellowship in social community psychiatry at Albert Einstein College of Medicine in the Bronx.
Mm,
A genius dean who was Israel Zwerlin, and my major place of learning and working was the South Bronx. I was working in a public school, junior high school, try to kind of research in the field how to stop pre-delinquent behavior in adolescents in very
mm,
deprived areas of the city of New York. That for me has been very important. Unfortunately, today, people don't even know what social community psychiatry is. It doesn't exist as a branch
right.
anymore. So this has been a big loss, which also tells a lot about how much community has been a social issues have been neglected in the field of psychotherapy. But that's I like to be identified. So one is more commonly known to be
Hmm.
family therapist. Another one is more memory of the past. Being for me is present community social community psychiatrist.
Okay. When you work in Italy, what label do you identify with your work there?
Again, mostly family therapist. Even though I identify as a prof, because when you are a prof, you're called always even from friend prof.
Right.
So I've been teaching at University of Rome, La Sapienza, for about 40 years.
Hmm.
Uh, and then I've been always teaching family in any level. Mostly family development, because one thing that I found family therapists don't know is about family development, which sounds ridiculous. They are much more focused on the presenting problem of the family,
Mm.
but they don't know how to put the presenting problem in a perspective of the family development, which I think is very important to understand about the present issues.
Yes, I think I found a quote of yours that said something like, I don't talk to children as children. I talk to children. When I talk to children, I talk to the family.
Exactly. This
Yeah.
has been called by myself. I recently wrote a paper called the multi-generational method, the bottom-up approach. Bottom-up
Mm.
approach means almost look into the family genogram upside down.
Yeah.
Instead of starting from the generation of the older generation, the history of the family, mythology, they pass through generation to another, I try to engage children on the genogram and go with the children up,
Hmm.
like exploring with the children family development. And that gives to the children an incredible role of expert instead of being labeled as a patient. So they are all children that I'm talking are children being brought in therapy for a number of reasons,
Right.
ADHD, eating disorder, violent behavior, whatever you want. So all these children become expert in exploring the family roots, together with the family, of course.
Of
But
course.
that will be my major tool, a link to the adult world,
Hmm.
to move to the adults.
Well, then I guess this might be a good time to plug your upcoming book called The Magic of the Child. That is currently, I believe, in published in Italian, but we're hoping to have it more widely published soon.
Yeah, actually, it's been published already in French. But unfortunately,
Uh,
French is like Italian for English-speaking people. If you don't write in English, it's difficult that you get information about. Now, in my paper, actually, which is the beginning paper of this magic of the child, I talk about the betrayal of family therapy in relationship to children. Can I say a word about that?
yes, please.
Because I've been in the field for 50 years, maybe 55. So I found that child theory around families rarely have been included children. If you
Hmm.
think about attachment theory, all the theory, every year we have a theory. The Bowen theory was fantastic, you know? Everything was about differentiation of self from the family of origin.
Hmm.
Bosoman, Nash, all the pioneers, you know, have been trying to understand who is the adult, how the adult is, what is the identity of a person who is grown up, much less about learning about children. I think one of the reasons was that people are scared first to work with children. They don't know how to handle children. I'm talking
Hmm.
about therapists, especially psychiatrists or adult therapists. They like to sit quietly in the room. They have a nice office. They don't know how to move to the floor, play with the child, using metaphor, drawings,
Hmm.
no metaphorical language, etc., etc. So I think that was a pity because nobody knows well that the initiator of family therapy in the world was Nathan Ackerman. Nathan Ackerman started in the 30s to work with families, much
Hmm.
before anybody else. And he was a child psychoanalyst who understood that in order to understand children, you have to have the family in the room. So
Hmm.
converted himself from being an expert on children in psychodynamic terms to become a family therapist. So the beginning was very good. Child was very much present. But then Nathaniel Kalkeman himself has been neglected in his own institute. Do you know when he died? He died very young. My first encounter with family therapy was in 1970 with him. I spent 1 month at this institute, and he was really a genius with children. But through the years, children has been children has been mostly identified as the victim. Like
Hmm.
talk always about child abuse, no? Which is a terrible issue. But it's always a look to the child as the victim of us adult to be traumatized in many ways, but we don't look at the resource of the child
Mm.
as a fantastic guide in therapy. Probably for me it was easier because I'm a child psychiatrist as origin. So I had the children as my major
Hmm.
clients, you know. But when I was in child psychiatry, children were mostly medicated or were mostly considered patient. So I left the child psychiatry department, but I brought with me the child for all these years.
Hmm. Now, you referenced some of those experiences 50 years ago. You got to work with some of the forefathers and foremothers of our field. What do you believe needs to be continued or maintained or brought back from that period that we could benefit from these days?
Yeah. Now I can quote a little bit about what I said in the introduction of this conference that was held in July, just very recently in Assisi,
Mm-hmm.
or this international conference. And there were two things that I said will need to be incorporated. One is the word movement. Family therapy for many decades was called family therapy movement,
Mm.
which keep the idea of something moving, something loose, but it moves, there is a movement.
Yeah.
It's not just a profession, it's a movement. So I would love to that would be incorporated the concept of movement. The other things that I would like to be incorporated is the concept of community,
Mm.
because community is very little present as a resource when we work with individual client or with families. So community work in the 70s, even in the 80s, was a context, social context was one of the main components to look at people issues. I think then we have been cutting off the connection outside the room of therapy. Home visiting was standard. Everybody would do home visiting.
Mm-hmm.
When you do home visiting, you go in the community, you go at home of someone. So now, for a number of reasons, people don't know how to do that, but mostly there is traffic, it's not possible, I don't know all the reasons. So we became much more bourgeois,
Mm-hmm.
much more used to see people in our own security zone, which is our offices.
Right.
So I think community work for me will be needed to be incorporated, especially today in such a toxic society.
Mm.
Society really is so important in order to understand people problem inside the house.
Well, and your other recent book, The Gift of Truth, talks about how your own professional journey as an educator and as a clinician has helped people try to take off the professional mask and be themselves with the family. Do you see that as part of what you mean by community building and engaging families?
Oh yeah, of course. You know, there has been always this debate about the therapist expertise. No, I remember for sometimes the word expert is wrong.
Mm,
If you're an expert, people will feel deprived, depowered. No, they will lose the power because you are the expert. And I agree with that. But there is another expertise that is the one in which we can elicit family resources. It's an
mm,
expertise. But it's a different expertise that to tell people you have to do this or that. So I always try to do that, to find ways to elicit family expertise. Then more recently, I mean in the last 10 more years, and I talk also in the gift of truth, especially with very severe cases of adolescents, suicidal, very chronic anorectic people. We have been, and then there has been COVID, so we learned that we can see people also through this way, Zoom.
yes.
When you have Zoom, you are in US, I'm in Rome, tomorrow I'm going to Australia. So the distance completely gone because
Mm-hmm.
we connect anywhere. So it's much easier to know to connect it. So I start a number of years ago in Rome with the young woman who was like a skeleton. She was
Mm,
so dying. She would eat, she wouldn't go to hospital. She was so weak. So then I say to her, why we don't to invite to a session the people that love you that will come to your funeral?
mm,
Maybe we can avoid the funeral if people that love you come and help you.
right.
So then 2 weeks later, the mother called me and said, the girl, the daughter, chose 23 people to come.
Wow.
I said, okay, I don't have 23 chairs in my room. You can sit around. So we had 23 people in the room. And that was the change. The family was the expert, became the expert. More recently, another young woman, child abuse, severely sexual abuse from France. I've been consulting, working with ongoing therapists. And we have, this was just a few months ago, a meeting with the people that love her on Zoom. There were 40 people, 40 pictures. There were 40 people in this computer, and that was so healing. So for me, this is family therapy,
Mm,
not just parent and child. Is to look for resources. We invite friends to the session as well. So to open up the door, then 3 generations, because we work a lot with this multi-generational modality.
right.
And then I think systemic theories has been so useful, are so useful, because if you don't have an idea of systems, you cannot invite these 23 people,
Right.
the 40 people that were coming from family, from institution, from different places. So I found this fascinating to see how more people you connect, the best therapy you had.
Mm,
And that I learned from Carl Whitaker.
mm-hmm.
When I was young, Carl Whitaker would invite huge number of people, more people in the room, more energy, more
Yeah.
life you have. But this is not a cup of tea for many therapists because they say, but what do you do with 23 people? I say, nothing. They do the work. You are
Yeah.
just monitoring their talk.
Fantastic. No, and I feel like the postmodern movement has also taught us to privilege certain unseen power sources. And so the resilience of the children, the power, the energy of the community as a way to tap into the expertise that's already there, as opposed to giving just a bunch of directives.
Absolutely.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And then there is another thing I like to say because I've been living in Australia, that is a multicultural country,
Mm-hmm.
work with the foundations, name with my brother name, called Silvano Andolfi in Rome. We have been exposed and learning from so many different people who migrated from all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
from homeless people, people that generally people don't consider how much we learn from working with homeless people. Because homeless people are just homeless now on the last 10 years, but before they have a home,
Mm-hmm.
they have family, they have a job. And then you see how people have been losing all that. And now you can give still some hope to them, to restore some kind of living. So I think then if you work with migration people, you cannot just work with the piece of family that is here. You have to work with the part of family that migrated,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to work and connect the part that is still in the original country. So that's again is a community work. It's work on cultural work. You work a
Mm-hmm.
lot on culture. You know.
Right. And that migration family systems, your multi-generational is even more important to be aware of the different cultures because different uh, cohorts might be in different continents.
Yeah, yeah. Now you were mentioning the gift of truth. For me, this book has been first of all it's semi-autobiographic.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about my life at the end, and I found that especially people who are functional leaders or pioneer or have some kind of important, they have to take off the mask of their titles and to talk about themselves. Then you understand what made people to build the theory or to give the motivation or the mission that they have in their work. Because to their personal biography, you understand who they are.
Mm-hmm.
We often try to make our client to be open on their biography, on their story, but we are much more shy or reserved with our own stuff.
Right.
So I think to be authentic means to be able to show who you are, also with your limits, your mistakes, with whatever, we are.
Yeah.
And I found that the word authenticity is very new in the field
Mm,
because it looks more as a moral value, which it is. But authenticity is more than that. It's like be yourself whenever you are
mm, mm,
and look for other people being themselves because family comes with lies and secret.
right.
Therapists come with lie and secret as well.
Mm.
So it's almost like you can take off your clothes and be more naked and be what you are and help people in front of you to do the same.
Well, and I do think that idea of modeling or even sort of social construction, like we are creating the truth and the healing together, um,
Yeah,
fits what you're talking about.
yeah.
Do you see anything, you're still writing, you're still presenting, you're still teaching. Do you see anything on the forefront of the systems or family therapy field that you're excited about? Maybe in light of doing more teletherapy, maybe in light of having more intercultural awareness or something else?
So you say what I would encourage younger people
Yeah.
to
What are you looking forward to? Where would you encourage young professionals to go into?
no, first of all, I encourage young professionals to be helped, to be trained on a personal dimension. I found that this need, this necessity has been decreasing a lot. People get MA in this or that, a counselor, a therapist, and the university there is very, very little attention on your own personal needs, personal formation, understanding about yourself. And even in after that, when you do masters or you work in a private institution as becoming a therapist, it's very random that you get solid program that are personal formation.
Mm-hmm.
To give the example of what we do here at the Academy in Rome, the Academy of Family Psychotherapy have been doing for 30 years. We have been 30 years just now, finished this year. All the students that come here, we are all either psychology or psychiatrist. Unfortunately, social worker has been not considered good to be psychotherapist either, which I think is a big mistake. But anyhow, everybody has limitation on their own national situation.
Sure.
So what we do the first year, all based on their personal development. Basically, they come with their family genograms.
Mm-hmm.
You get teachers who are good in helping them, not only to describe the genogram, but to find the silent spot or empty spot in the family genogram, or to elicit some part of the genogram that are more relevant, that's been not identified, and
Mm-hmm.
then moving from the genogram to sculpting some kind of event. So that means the first client is yourself,
Mm.
the first client. Then you can put your hand in the clients and to understand their pain because you have been able to disclose your own stuff first. So that would be my wish. But unfortunately, it's not so present in many parts of the world. The need of being informed on the personal level. Then, of course, you need to help them to work with families.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we learn by watching. I was watching Salvatore Minuchin, I was working with Carl Whitaker, I was working with Ackerman, I was working in the South Bronx. It was always a one-way mirror. Linhoff said once that what the real revolution of family therapy has been the use of one-way mirror.
Mm.
Why that? Because that's changed the idea about learning by doing and having someone help you by intervening or helping you from the other side. And now, how many people use one-way mirrors today? How
Right.
many people used to have like direct consultation, which means live supervision. So that's my wish, because it's possible. It's just that we are more used to use protocols or PowerPoint. We don't show our real work that we do with families. And all the association, IFTA as well. I remember many conferences which we were showing family therapy, doing
Mm-hmm.
that, showing video. So I think my wish is that we stop to invent one model every 6 months. That is the winning one. Be more realistic, moving from these theoretical, grandiose ideas to work with real people and to show how you can help them out.
Well, and I like the idea, the wisdom of slowing down and spending more time with fewer people and starting with yourself. You're more likely to be effective than trying to maximize your caseload or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's excellent advice. Your first client is yourself. I love that
Yeah.
as a phrase. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the viewers about yourself, your work, or anything else?
Yeah, I would like to share one thing. By
Go for it.
having been a professor for so many years with young kids at university, I was doing something that was considered a little bizarre. I was preparing my lectures in the university together with the student.
Mm-hmm.
That I was presenting a lecture or whatever the subject. 2 or 3, 4 students were prepared the same lecture with their own stuff, and then we will come out with the lecture that was joint between myself and the young kids. And I have to tell you openly, sometimes they've been able to do research or to prepare PowerPoint or ideas much more sophisticated than mine.
Mm,
So what's the story behind that? I think we are very paternalistic in terms of when you are young, you are just to learn. And to learn sometime in that you have to incorporate on yourself ideas of people that are more experienced, blah, blah, blah. So there is then that you don't come out with who you are, but you are becoming a little copy of someone else.
yeah.
So my wish is that, because young people are always the same, they were the same 50 years ago, the same today. Young people has ideas, are sharp, are much more able to make big transformation in their life, even in their professional direction, than people in their 50s. Because when you are accommodated to your life, it's difficult to make big change.
Mm,
So I will wish that we, adult or senior people, can use more the resource that come from younger people when we teach them, which is very much parallel to the idea that children in therapy
right.
are the major guide to help adults out. So that's why I would like to leave this kind of message, because we are going to disappear and the younger generation has to take over. And they has to feel strong and solid on their own legs.
Mm-hmm. Well, wonderful. Dr. Maurizio Andolfi. I have always enjoyed your energy, and I'm glad that you continue to give it back to as many people as you can. And it's not a surprise that you work well with young people because they gotta love your energy as well. So I appreciate you joining us today, and thank you so much.
It was an incredible pleasure.